Well, this week we're putting the future of government benefits to the smell test, and as 70 million baby boomers approach retirement, Generation Y, or the millennials, or whatever you want to call them, they're going to be footing the bill for Social Security and all the other government programs. But many of them will also be helping with the health care costs for their own aging relatives, a population that is living longer than ever. Is it fair to leave today's young people holding the bag? And with few positions available in this changing job market, will they be able to afford it? Joining me now, conservative activist Ron Meyer. Ron, we've talked before, and I think you're a very a good voice, eloquent voice for 20-somethings in this country. I'm curious about what you are thinking, looking at the big pile of bills that my generation is leaving to yours.
Well, it's pretty immoral, it's unjust what Congress is doing, and it's not just your generation altogether. It's really the leaders in Congress who are just unwilling. If you look at a lot of normal older Americans or baby boom generation Americans, they actually want a sustainable government for their kids. A lot of baby boomers have actually personally saved for their kids, for their college, for their future, but Congress has not done the same. The problem with Congress is they're leaving all the long-term problems on the debt, Social Security, and Medicare to the next generation. And personally, what I'm thinking is that if they're going to leave everything to the next generation, all of the tough problems, maybe it's time for somebody from a younger generation to lead now, because we actually have a self-interest in solving these problems. And I think we need a Kickstarter in Washington right now. The problem is that they're absolutely unwilling to act because it's not in the interest of their next election, or at least they don't think it is. But I think America's on the side of actually wanting a sustainable government. At this point, it's not even talking about a limited government. It's just talking about a government that can actually last. If you look at the math, our government, just because of the interest payments, is going to go bankrupt here in the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, listen, let me get this on the table right away. I saw an article where you are thinking, you're forming an exploratory committee, you're thinking about running for Congress, and if you do and you get elected in 2014, you will just have turned the minimum age of 25 to be a congressman. Is that right?
That's correct. I'll turn 25 on September 28th in 2014, and we're definitely getting close to making a decision on that, by the way. I think April 15th on tax day, you might be hearing some news on that.
All right. Well, regardless, what I'm digging for is this. If you are a young congressman and your generation someday will be in Congress, whether it's you or other folks your age, do you see the possibility that you start changing the rules for the boomers when they're retired and they're in their retirement homes, and saying, we can't afford the promises that were made by your generation to yourself, so we're changing the promises because we don't have the money?
No, actually, it's the exact opposite. I mean, yeah, we might have to make some gradual changes, give people more choice with Medicare. That's the biggest problem. But the big thing is that people need to realize is because of the interest payments on the debt, Social Security, Medicare, they're all unsustainable in current form. Right now, our interest payments on the debt that we pay every year, so just like with your credit card, we have to pay the interest every year on our debt. Right now, it's at $225 billion. In 5 years, it'll be about $500 billion. In 10 years, it'll be nearly $1 trillion just for the interest payments on the debt. And so when we're talking about $1 trillion out of a $5 trillion budget, we have to all of a sudden find a bunch of cuts. We're talking about 8 to 10 times the size of sequester all at once. And so that means that federal workers are going to be targeted, Social Security is going to have to be targeted, Medicare is going to be targeted. And this isn't doom and gloom. It's just looking at the basic math. People have been ignoring these interest payments. The biggest driver of the debt is the debt itself. It's these interest payments, and no one's willing to have the courage to say, look at the math. We can't make this work. And so it's about getting to a sustainable government and a balanced budget as soon as possible. It's in the interest of even federal workers. It's in the interest of people on Social Security, Medicare, and obviously young people. That's why we have to work together and get past this doom and gloom rhetoric in D.C.
Don't do this political speak with me now. You're starting to talk like a politician. You're talking about it, but you're dodging the big elephant in the room, and that is someday somebody is going to have to cut the promises.
It's really basic. We have to do a few things. We might have to raise the age a couple years. We're going to have to means test Social Security and Medicare. So we're talking that everybody's going to get what they paid into the system, right? The problem is with Social Security right now is that people are getting 3 times back what they paid into the system thanks to inflation. You could thank the Federal Reserve. But I think what we should say, everyone's going to get what they paid in, but for the folks who are making $1 million or $1 billion a year, we can start tapering those back and still give people what they paid in, but just not 3 times as much as they paid in, and try to actually get to a sustainable system.
I know, but I saw a story last week that was talking about the fact that 57% of the people in this country have less than $25,000 in savings. Ron, I see in your future, whether you're in Congress or not, there is going to be a huge pile of seniors in poverty, don't have the money, aren't paying taxes, and are going to be looking for lots of services.
Well, exactly. And the problem is right now we have a bunch of young people in poverty. This is a bad number, and it's something that's underreported. Only 30% of young people under 30% under 30 have full-time work. Only 3 in 10. And so what we're seeing is a great youth depression. Student loan debt is off the chart. Young people are graduating college and just going unemployed and into debt. And not to mention that healthcare costs are set to rise by 200% over the next couple of years for young people, thanks to the Obamacare price controls. And so we really have a two-pronged problem. We have a bunch of elderly folks who are going to need us to be taking care of them. And then we have all these young people without jobs, with college debt. And so we really have to look at this country and say, okay, first of all, how are we going to get young people employed, and how can we get higher education actually preparing people for the jobs out there? And look at the other end on how are we going to make entitlements sustainable. I think there's solutions out there, but Washington, I think, like you said, is afraid to talk about it. But I think the irony is that it's in the interest, like I said, and this isn't just political talk, it's in the interest of federal workers, of people on Social Security, and young people all together to actually work on this problem and get a sustainable government and a balanced budget in 5 years.
All right, Ron Meyer, we'll look forward to your announcement, and good luck to you. Thank you for being on.
Thanks, Tom.
You bet.